Hi boys and girls, welcome to Reading Time with Mrs. Perry Andre. Today we're going to be doing a reading lesson just like we do in class. I have my charts and a book to read with you. The only difference is you're at home and I'm here, and I'm going to stop sometimes. I'm going to ask you questions, and when I do that, I want you to either talk to somebody or maybe even your favorite stuffed animal. So I'm going to give you a minute right now to think about what you can go get right now, a stuffed animal, or maybe have somebody sit next to you that you can answer my questions to. Go ahead, find somebody or a stuffed animal. Okay, I'm gonna get started. Hopefully you have somebody next to you. If not, you could have paused the video and that's okay. All right, so today I'm gonna be teaching you how readers look back in their story to answer their questions. This is the main thing I want to teach you today. How do we look back in our stories to answer questions? And I picked a favorite author of mine to do this with. I picked a book by Cynthia Rylant, who we know wrote all of our Henry and Mudge books that we love so well. This is a book by Cynthia Rylant, and it's illustrated by Mark Teague. The first thing, of course, we want to do is find out the author and read the title. And this story is called Poppleton. And I can look at the picture, and I already have some questions about the picture, and I can tell there's some characters on the front cover. So that tells me already some information about the book. I'm going to take a look at the back. Oh, and there's somebody different. That's a different character. So and there's a little blurb. It says, the Poppleton books are an excellent way to help children learn to read. So this is a book that you could read. That's exciting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing I'm going to show you, something we all love very much, it has some chapters. So I'm only going to read chapter 1. And chapter 1 is called Neighbors. So that tells me already some information. Neighbors. So I know they're living somewhere next to people. Neighbors. Poppleton used to be a city pig. He did city things. He took taxis. He jogged in the park. He went to museums. Then, one day, Poppleton got tired of city life. He moved to a small house in a small town. Poppleton's small house was charming. It had a little sunroom where Poppleton took naps. It had lots and lots of shelves where Poppleton kept things, and it had a little garden where Poppleton planted corn. And it had Cherry Sue. Cherry Sue was Poppleton's new neighbor. I just found out who his neighbor is. Cherry Sue was very friendly. In the mornings, she called out, "Yoo-hoo, Poppleton, would you like some oatmeal?" So, Poppleton had oatmeal with Cherry Sue. In the afternoons, she called out, "Yoo-hoo, Poppleton, would you like a toasted cheese?" So Poppleton had toasted cheese with Cherry Sue. At night, she called out, "Yoo-hoo, Poppleton, would you like spaghetti?" So Poppleton had spaghetti with Cherry Sue. This went on day after day. At first, it was fun, but not for long. Some mornings, Poppleton did not want oatmeal. He wanted to sleep. And some afternoons, Poppleton did not want toasted cheese. He wanted TV. And some nights, Poppleton did not want spaghetti. He wanted to practice playing his harmonica, but Cherry Sue kept calling, "Yoo-hoo, Poppleton." One day, when he was watering his lawn, Poppleton couldn't take it anymore. When Cherry Sue stuck her head out the window and yelled, "Yoo-hoo," Poppleton soaked her with the hose. "Poppleton," cried Cherry Sue, dripping. Poppleton felt awful. He ran to get a towel for Cherry Sue. "Oh, I'm sorry, Cherry Sue," said Poppleton. I just got so sick of toasted cheese and spaghetti and oatmeal. Sometimes I just like to be alone. You too, said Cherry Sue. I kept inviting you because I didn't know how to stop inviting you over, she said. I thought it might hurt your feelings. Then Poppleton soaked himself with the hose. They laughed, and Poppleton and Cherry Sue were best friends from then on. Okay, boys and girls, that was chapter 1. So now I'm going to show you how readers can look back in the story to answer their questions. So we have our book, Poppleton, and we can ask and answer some questions that I listed over here. The first thing I might ask is my book fiction or nonfiction? And remember, a fiction book is a book that is about something that's not real. It's made up, like maybe a fish who's really talking or a pig who's talking. A nonfiction book teaches us information. So this book, because it's about a pig who's not real, that's a fiction book. So that's one question I have for myself. Is it fiction or nonfiction? The next question I have is, who are the characters? Who are the characters in my story? And I found a little bit out about that right away, right? I had Poppleton, and then there was a guy over here, but I didn't see him in the book. Instead, I can look back in my book and find the other character in the book. So here it is. There she is, Cherry Sue, right? So that was the other character, and there they are together. So I can look back to remind myself of that. Now, what is the setting? What is the setting? Where did the story happen? Well, I found out that Poppleton first lived in the big city, and then he moved to the country. So the setting would be where he lived, which was in the country, right, in his home. My next question could be, what is the problem? Boys and girls, think about it. What is the problem in the story? What happened that caused some problems for Poppleton? Think about that. What do you think it could be? You could turn and talk here to your friend or to somebody near you. What was the problem? You're right. The problem was that Poppleton, if I look back in my story, he got tired of being invited over to Cherry Sue's for all of those different meals. He kind of wanted to do some of his own things, right? On this page we saw he was kind of getting tired of always being invited. He wanted to do things himself sometimes. So that was a problem. Who is telling the story? Now, boys and girls, when we talk about who is telling a story, we can talk about two things. Is one of the characters telling the story, or is it somebody else, which we would call a narrator? Somebody else telling the story. So in this story, was Poppleton or Cherry Sue telling the story? Or was somebody else telling the story to us? Think about that. Who was telling us the story? Right. Poppleton was not telling the story. A narrator or another person, a third person, was telling us the story. The last question I'm going to ask is, what is the story mostly about? What was that story mostly about? Well, in that first story of, okay, so what is the story mostly about? So we know that it was about Poppleton. And if I look back in the book, because readers need to look back sometimes to answer their questions, I remember this other character. Oh, that's right, Cherry Sue. So the story was really about Poppleton and Cherry Sue and how they became best friends from that point on. And they laughed and laughed, right? That was really at the end. So, boys and girls, what I want to teach you today is that you can do this questioning too. If you have a piece of paper, or I'm going to use a sticky note and a marker, you can use a piece of paper or an index card, and you can think about some questions that you might have about your story. So a question I might have about this story, if I read chapter 1 and heard what happened with neighbors, I wonder, my question might be is, what might happen next? What might happen next? So I wrote that on a sticky note, and I can actually put that, if I'm going to read this book again tomorrow, I can put that sticky note on there. And there's my question for tomorrow, is to think about what might happen next when I pick up my book. So what I want you to do today is exactly what I did. I want you to go pick a book, and you can actually even go on Epic or Scholastic, or you can go on to Raz, and you can read a book in there. And while you're reading it, think about some questions about maybe the characters, the setting, what's the problem, who was telling the story, or what is the story mostly about? And maybe write one of those questions down, put a sticky note on it, and see if you can answer it. I want to go give that a try today. Go ahead, and I'll see you next time.